Okay, so picture this. I'm 26, ridiculously successful, and head over heels in love. Life was good, like private jet to the Bahamas for a weekend getaway. Good. I had it all. The penthouse apartment, the designer wardrobe, the fiancé who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Oh, and did I mention the cosmetics empire I built from scratch? Yeah, Lena's luscious lipsticks was kind of a big deal. Mark, my fiancé, was all Wall Street charm and GQ good looks. He was the kind of guy who could talk his way out of a parking ticket and into a five-star restaurant reservation. We were the it couple, the ones everyone envied, or so I thought. My family, well, they were family. You know the type, loving in that as long as you're successful and bringing in the big bucks kind of way. My mom was all about social status and designer labels, while my dad was obsessed with his golf game and the latest stock market trends. They were proud of me, sure, but mostly because my success reflected well on them. Lena, darling, you're a marvel. My mom would gush, her eyes sparkling with dollar signs. That new shade of red is simply divine. Sales must be through the roof. It's called Crimson Desire, Mom, I'd say, rolling my eyes. And yes, it's doing quite well. Then came the cough. Just a persistent tickle at first, nothing major. But it lingered, growing more annoying, more insistent. I chalked it up to stress, the endless meetings, the pressure of running a global brand. You need to relax, babe, Mark would say, his hand resting a little too low on my back. All work and no play makes Lena a dull girl. Easy for him to say. He spent his days playing golf with clients and his nights charming socialites at cocktail parties. But the cough wouldn't quit. Then came the fatigue, the weight loss, the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. A doctor's visit, a battery of tests, and bam, the diagnosis hit me like a ton of bricks. It's aggressive, the doctor said, his voice grave. Terminal? Terminal. The word echoed in my head, a death knell to my perfect life. Me, dying at 26? It was a cruel cosmic joke, a punchline I wasn't ready to hear. I walked out of that doctor's office in a daze. The world suddenly tilted on its axis. The bustling city streets seemed muted. The vibrant colors dulled. The laughter and chatter a distant hum. I was a ghost in my own life, a walking corpse with a ticking clock. Mark, I whispered, my voice trembling as I called him. I need you. Can't talk now, babe, he said, his voice distracted. Big meeting. Dinner with the Johnsons later. Gotta impress them, you know? Yeah, I knew. Impressing people, climbing the social ladder, securing his place in the world of wealth and privilege. My illness, my impending death, was just an inconvenience. A bump in the road to his perfect life. And as I hung up the phone, a chilling realization washed over me. I was alone, truly alone. In the face of death, the people I thought I could count on, the ones who were supposed to love me, support me, cherish me, were nowhere to be found. And that, my friends, was the most devastating diagnosis of all. Okay, so the terminal illness talk with Mark went about as well as you'd expect. Picture this. Candlelit dinner at our penthouse, overlooking the city skyline, me trying to choke back sobs while explaining that, I might not be around to enjoy the view much longer. Lena, babe, don't be dramatic, he said, his eyes more focused on the vintage wine than my tear-stained face. You'll beat this. You're a fighter. Yeah, a fighter who was apparently fighting alone. Mark's idea of support involved a lot of "you've got this" pep talks and a noticeable increase in his late nights at the office. Late nights that, I soon discovered, involved a lot less spreadsheets and a lot more of Melissa, the leggy blonde intern with a penchant for designer handbags and married men. I caught them, of course, not in a dramatic, hair-pulling, lipstick-smearing confrontation, but in a quiet, soul-crushing observation. A stolen kiss in the elevator, a whispered conversation in the hallway, a lingering touch that spoke volumes. Mark, I confronted him one evening, my voice surprisingly steady. Who is Melissa? He blinked, his face paling. Melissa? Oh, just an intern, helping me with stuff. Stuff like late-night brainstorming sessions in hotel rooms? I asked, my voice laced with a bitterness I didn't know I possessed. He stammered, tried to deny it, but the guilt was written all over his face. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that my fiancé, the man who was supposed to love me, cherish me, stand by me through thick and thin, was already moving on. Like I was already gone. The family wasn't much better. News of my diagnosis spread like wildfire. And suddenly, I was no longer the golden child, the successful entrepreneur, the one they bragged about at cocktail parties. I was the dying daughter, the inconvenient burden, the one they whispered about behind closed doors. Poor Lena, my mother would sigh, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. Such a tragedy. And she was doing so well. What about her company? My father would ask, his eyes gleaming with a calculating glint. Who's going to take over? Take over? I wasn't even cold yet, and they were already dividing up the spoils. The inheritance discussions started subtly at first, veiled in concern and what-ifs, but soon the mask came off, and the vultures circled. Lena, darling, my mother said one afternoon, her voice overly sweet, have you thought about your will? You know, just in case. In case I die? I finished, my voice flat. Well, yes, dear, she said, her eyes darting away. It's important to have your affairs in order. Affairs in order? Or their inheritance secured? The conversations became more frequent, more blatant, the thinly veiled greed replacing any pretense of concern or compassion. They argued over who would get the apartment, the car, the shares in my company, as if I were already a ghost, a memory, a footnote in their lives. And as I sat there, listening to them bicker over my possessions, my future, my very existence, I felt a profound sense of isolation. The people who were supposed to love me, support me, grieve for me, were already treating me like I was dead. And that, my friends, was the most devastating betrayal of all. Okay, so it wasn't just Mark and my family. My friends, the ones who'd been so eager to share in my success, the ones who'd filled my social calendar with champagne brunches and rooftop parties, they vanished faster than you could say terminal diagnosis. It started with the missed calls, the unanswered texts, the vague excuses. Oh, Lena, so sorry I missed your call, been swamped at work. Lena, darling, can't make it tonight, something came up. Lena, sweetie, thinking of you, but not enough to actually, visit. The invites stopped coming. The brunches, the parties, the exclusive events. I was no longer on the guest list. Apparently, a dying girl wasn't exactly a hot commodity in the world of social climbers and champagne wishes. Hey, remember that gallery opening next week? I'd ask a friend, my voice hopeful. Oh, Lena, I totally forgot. And I already have plans. Rain check? Translation? Never. The loneliness was suffocating. I was surrounded by people, employees, assistants, even the occasional paparazzi lurking outside my building. But I'd never felt so alone. It was like being trapped in a crowded room, invisible, unheard, a ghost haunting my own life. I tried to reach out, to connect, to hold on to the remnants of my old life. But every attempt was met with awkward silences, forced smiles, and hasty exits. Lena, how are you, feeling? A former friend would ask, her eyes darting away, her voice filled with a mixture of pity and fear. I'm managing, I'd say, my voice cracking. That's good, she'd mumble, backing away slowly. Well, gotta run, take care. Translation, don't die on me, it'll be awkward. The isolation seeped into my bones, a cold, heavy weight that dragged me down. I stopped going out, stopped answering the phone, stopped pretending that I was anything other than a dying girl waiting for the inevitable. My apartment, once a haven of laughter and celebration, became a prison of silence and despair. The designer furniture, the expensive artwork, the breathtaking views, it all felt meaningless, a mockery of a life I was losing. I spent my days curled up on the couch, watching mindless TV, the remote a lifeline to a world I no longer belonged to. I'd order takeout, the delivery guy, the only human contact I had some days. His awkward get well soon, the closest thing to human connection I experienced. Thanks, I'd mumble, my voice barely a whisper, as I took the bag, the weight of the food a reminder of the emptiness inside. The nights were the worst. The silence was deafening, the loneliness a crushing weight on my chest. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, The city lights a cruel reminder of the life I was missing, the future I would never have. I felt like a burden, a pariah, a walking reminder of mortality in a world obsessed with youth and beauty. And as I drifted off to sleep, the darkness closing in, I wondered if anyone would even notice when I was gone. Okay, so when you're basically a walking ghost in your own life, you tend to do a lot of wandering, aimless, soul searching kind of wandering. And my office building, with its maze of corridors and forgotten corners, was the perfect place to get lost in my own thoughts. One afternoon, I found myself on the 10th floor, a storage area I rarely visited. Dust bunnies the size of small dogs tumbled across the floor, and the air was thick with the smell of old paper and forgotten dreams. As I was about to turn back, I noticed it. A door. A plain, unmarked door, tucked away in a shadowy alcove, almost invisible in the dim light. Now, I'd been in this building since we'd moved in, and I'd never seen that door before. It was like it had materialized out of thin air, a hidden portal to something. Curiosity, that little spark that still flickered within my weary soul, got the better of me. I approached the door, my hand reaching out to the tarnished brass handle. It was cold, heavy, strangely inviting. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. No answer. I hesitated, a shiver running down my spine. What was I doing? Exploring a dusty old storage room? Chasing shadows in a building I knew like the back of my hand? It was ridiculous, pointless, maybe even a little creepy. But the door beckoned. Its silence a challenge, its mystery an allure. I took a deep breath, steeled my nerves, and turned the handle. The door creaked open, revealing darkness. Not just the absence of light, but a deeper, more profound darkness, a void that seemed to swallow the light, the sound, the very air around it. Okay, this is officially weird, I muttered to myself, my voice barely a whisper. I reached for my phone, the flashlight a beacon in the encroaching darkness. As I stepped through the doorway, I felt a strange sensation, a tingling in my fingertips, a dizziness in my head. And then, the world shifted. The darkness vanished, replaced by light, blinding, overwhelming light. I shielded my eyes, blinking against the sudden brightness, my senses reeling. And then, I saw it. The world. A world unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Flying cars zipped through the air, their sleek designs a blur of color against the backdrop of towering skyscrapers that seemed to defy gravity. People strolled along skywalks, their clothes shimmering with an iridescent glow, their faces etched with a serene contentment I'd never witnessed before. "What the?" I gasped, my voice caught in my throat. This wasn't my world. This wasn't my reality. This was something else. Something different. Something impossible. But there it was, in all its futuristic glory, a world that seemed to have sprung from the pages of a science fiction novel. And as I stood there, on the threshold of the unknown, a flicker of excitement, a spark of adventure ignited within me. For the first time in months, I felt alive. Okay, so picture this. 1 minute you're in a dusty old storage room. The next you're staring at flying cars and buildings that look like they belong in a sci-fi movie. Yeah, talk about a culture shock. I felt like I'd stepped onto the set of some futuristic blockbuster, except this was real, or at least it felt real. My initial reaction, disorientation, pure and simple. I stumbled out of the doorway, blinking against the bright sunlight, my senses overloaded. The air hummed with a low thrumming sound, like 1,000 tiny drones buzzing in unison. The smells were different too, a mix of ozone and something sweet, almost floral. "Whoa," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper. "This is insane." I looked around, trying to make sense of it all. The buildings were sleek and shimmering, their surfaces reflecting the sunlight in a dazzling display of color. People glided by on what looked like hoverboards, their movements fluid and effortless. Everyone was dressed in clothes that looked like they'd been woven from starlight, shimmering and flowing in the gentle breeze. And me? Well, I was still rocking my decidedly unfuturistic jeans and t-shirt, looking like I'd wandered off the set of a historical drama. I stuck out like a sore thumb, a relic from a bygone era. Um, hello? I called out, my voice a little too loud in the otherwise serene environment. People stopped and stared, their eyes wide with curiosity. They whispered to each other, their voices a melodic hum I couldn't understand. I felt a blush creeping up my neck. This was officially the most awkward I'd felt since that time I accidentally set my hair on fire at a company Christmas party. And then I saw her, an older woman dressed in a crisp white lab coat, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was standing near a floating kiosk, studying me with an intense curiosity that mirrored my own. She had kind eyes, a warm smile, and an air of quiet authority that made me feel safe. She approached me, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Greetings," she said, her voice clear and melodic. "You seem out of place." "You could say that," I replied, my voice a little shaky. I, I'm not from around here." She tilted her head, her eyes assessing me. "Indeed," she said. "Your attire, it's quite unusual." "Yeah, well," I shrugged. "I'm kind of a time traveler." She chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. "A time traveler? How intriguing." "Long story," I said, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over me. I think I need to sit down." She frowned, her expression turning concerned. "Of course," she said, taking my arm. "Come with me. I have a laboratory nearby." She led me through the bustling crowds, her touch surprisingly strong and reassuring. I followed her, my mind reeling, trying to process everything that was happening. This was insane, impossible. But it was real, and as I walked beside this kind, curious woman, I felt a flicker of hope, a spark of connection in this strange new world. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't so lost after all. Okay, so Dr. Eris's lab was something else. Imagine a cross between a science museum and a high-tech spa with holographic displays, glowing orbs, and equipment that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. I was officially out of my depth, and my jeans and t-shirt were really starting to feel out of place. "Have a seat," Dr. Eris said, gesturing to a sleek, ergonomic chair that seemed to mold itself to my body. "Can I offer you some refreshment? We have a delightful algae-based beverage that's quite popular here." Sure," I said, trying not to wrinkle my nose. "Algae-based? I was more of a latte kind of girl." She handed me a glass filled with a green, viscous liquid that looked suspiciously like pond scum. I took a hesitant sip, expecting the worst, but it actually wasn't bad. Kind of like a green smoothie with a hint of mint. "So," Dr. Eris said, her eyes twinkling with curiosity, "you mentioned you're a time traveler. Care to elaborate?" I took a deep breath and launched into my story. The terminal diagnosis, the betrayal, the abandonment, the dusty old door, and the sudden arrival in this futuristic wonderland. She listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to disbelief to amusement. "And you say you have, what was it? A terminal illness?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of skepticism. "Yeah," I said, my voice cracking. "Some rare lung disease. Incurable, they said." She burst out laughing. Not a mean, mocking laugh, but a genuine, hearty laugh that filled the room. I stared at her, my eyebrows raised. Was she serious, laughing at my impending death? "I'm sorry," she said, wiping a tear from her eye. "It's just, that's so quaint." "Quaint?" I echoed, my voice rising. "Quaint? I'm dying and you think it's quaint?" "No, not dying," she said, her smile softening. "That particular illness. It's quite easily treatable here. A simple genetic modification, a few days in a rejuvenation pod, and you'd be good as new." I stared at her, my mouth agape. Treatable? A few days? Good as new? It was like she was speaking a foreign language, a language of hope and possibility I'd forgotten existed. "You're serious?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Of course," she said, her eyes twinkling. "We've made significant advancements in medical technology. What was once considered terminal is now merely an inconvenience." An inconvenience? The word echoed in my head, a stark contrast to the death sentence I'd been given back in my own world. I felt a surge of hope, a wave of relief so powerful it almost knocked me off my feet. Can you treat me? I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Certainly, she said, her smile widening. It would be my pleasure. I spent the next few days undergoing tests, scans, and procedures that seemed more like science fiction than medical treatment. Dr. Aris explained the science behind it all, the genetic modifications, the nanotechnology, the cellular regeneration. It was mind-boggling, awe-inspiring, and utterly life-changing. And as I lay in the rejuvenation pod, bathed in a warm, soothing light, I felt the illness leaving my body, the fatigue fading, the hope returning. I was being healed, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I was being given a chance I never thought I'd have. And it was all thanks to this incredible woman, this brilliant scientist who had welcomed me into her world, her lab, her life. I had found a friend, a mentor, a savior. And as I emerged from the pod, healthy, vibrant, and full of life, I knew that my journey had just begun. Okay, so the treatment was nothing like I'd ever experienced. Forget sterile white rooms and grumpy nurses. Dr. Aris's lab was all soothing lights, calming music, and holographic displays that made it feel like I was floating in space. This is the gene sequencer, she explained, gesturing to a device that looked like a giant, iridescent seashell. It'll identify the faulty genes responsible for your illness. Whoa, I breathed, my eyes wide with fascination. Back in my world, this kind of technology was still the stuff of science fiction. The process was surprisingly quick and painless. A few scans, a blood sample, and bam, my genetic code was mapped out in intricate detail. Dr. Aris then whipped up a personalized gene therapy, a shimmering serum that looked like liquid gold. This will correct the faulty genes and initiate the healing process, she explained, injecting the serum into my arm. You might feel a slight tingling sensation. Slight tingling? It felt like 1,000 tiny fireworks exploding under my skin, but it wasn't painful, more like exhilarating. Like my cells were waking up, buzzing with newfound energy. Then came the rejuvenation pod. Imagine a giant pearly egg filled with warm, pulsating light. I climbed in, feeling a wave of relaxation wash over me. Dr. Aris explained that the pod would accelerate the healing process, stimulating cell regeneration and boosting my immune system. Think of it as a spa day for your DNA, she said, her eyes twinkling. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth and the gentle hum of the pod lull me into a state of blissful tranquility. It was like being reborn, shedding the old diseased cells and embracing a new, healthier version of myself. Over the next few days, I underwent a series of treatments, each one more incredible than the last. Nanobots coursed through my bloodstream, repairing damaged tissue and strengthening my organs. I felt stronger, more vibrant, more alive than I had in months. And through it all, Dr. Aris was there, monitoring my progress, answering my questions, and sharing her passion for science with an enthusiasm that was contagious. We talked for hours about medicine, technology, and the endless possibilities of the future. You know, she said one day, her eyes sparkling with excitement, your arrival here could be a breakthrough, a chance to bridge the gap between our worlds, to share knowledge and advancements for the betterment of humankind. I'd like that, I said, my heart swelling with a newfound sense of purpose. I wasn't just a patient anymore, I was a collaborator, a friend, a fellow explorer on the frontiers of science and discovery. And as I looked at Dr. Aris, her face radiant with the joy of healing and innovation, I knew that I had found more than just a cure in this futuristic world. I had found a kindred spirit, a mentor, a friend who believed in me, in my potential, in my ability to make a difference. And that, my friends, was the most powerful healing of all. Okay, so being cured of a terminal illness is pretty awesome, but you know what's even more awesome? Discovering a world where wrinkles are a thing of the past and anti-aging isn't just a marketing gimmick. Yeah, the cosmetic medicine in Dr. Aris's world was mind-blowing. We've moved beyond invasive procedures, she explained, showing me a device that looked like a futuristic hairdryer. This uses targeted sound waves to stimulate collagen production and tighten the skin. No needles, no downtime, just instant results. Whoa, I breathed, my fingers itching to try it out. Forget Lena's luscious lipsticks. This was the kind of innovation that could revolutionize the beauty industry. I spent hours in Dr. Eris's lab, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. She showed me nanobots that could repair damaged hair follicles, serums that could erase scars and blemishes, even a device that could literally sculpt your body by manipulating fat cells and muscle tissue. This is incredible, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. Imagine what this could do for people with burns, scars, disfigurements. The applications are endless, Dr. Aris agreed, her eyes shining with excitement. We've even developed a serum that can temporarily alter your appearance, changing your hair color, eye color, even your facial features. Seriously, I gasped, like I could be a redhead with green eyes tomorrow. She chuckled. Precisely. It's quite popular for theatrical productions and, well, let's just say some people enjoy a little variety in their appearance. The seed of an idea was planted, not just a business idea, but a way to use this incredible technology to help people, to boost their confidence, to empower them to embrace their own unique beauty. Dr. Iris, I said, my voice filled with a newfound determination, I want to learn everything you can teach me. I want to take this knowledge back to my world, to make a difference, to help people feel good about themselves. She smiled, her eyes filled with approval. That's a noble goal, Lena, and I believe you can achieve it. I spent the next few weeks immersed in the world of futuristic cosmetology, learning about the science, the technology, and the ethical considerations behind it all. Dr. Aris became my mentor, my guide, my friend. She shared her knowledge freely, her passion for healing and innovation inspiring me to push beyond my own limitations. And as I delved deeper into this world of wonder and possibility, I knew that I wasn't just learning about cosmetic medicine. I was discovering a new purpose, a new path, a new way to make my mark on the world. And that, my friends, was the most beautiful transformation of all. Okay, so after weeks of intensive learning and late-night lab sessions, it was time to say goodbye to Dr. Aris and her amazing world of futuristic beauty. I was sad to leave, but also excited to get back to my own world, armed with newfound knowledge and a determination to make a difference. Lena, Dr. Aris said, her voice filled with warmth. You have a brilliant mind and a compassionate heart. I have no doubt you'll do great things. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I couldn't have done this without you. She smiled, her eyes twinkling. Nonsense. You had the strength and the curiosity within you all along. I simply helped you unlock it. She handed me a small silver vial, filled with a shimmering, opalescent liquid. This is for you, she said, a parting gift. What is it? I asked, my curiosity piqued. A serum, she explained. Our most popular one. It preserves youthful appearance, slows down the aging process, and enhances, well, let's just say it enhances your natural beauty. Wow, I breathed, staring at the vial in awe. This was it, the ultimate beauty secret, the holy grail of anti-aging. Use it wisely, Lena, Dr. Aris said, her voice serious. This technology has the power to change lives, but it also has the potential for misuse. Promise me you'll use your knowledge for good. I promise, I said, my voice firm. I won't let you down. We hugged, a long, heartfelt embrace that sealed our friendship and the incredible journey we'd shared. Then, with a mix of sadness and excitement, I stepped back through the hidden door, the familiar darkness enveloping me. And then, just like that, I was back. Back in the dusty old storage room, the faint smell of old paper and forgotten dreams filling my nostrils. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the dim light, my mind still reeling from the experience. I looked at the vial in my hand, the serum glowing faintly in the darkness. It was real. It had all been real. The futuristic world, the incredible technology, the amazing woman who had healed me and given me a second chance. I clutched the vial to my chest, my heart pounding with a mix of gratitude and determination. I was going to keep my promise to Dr. Aris. I was going to use this knowledge, this gift, to make a difference in the world. I walked out of the storage room, my steps lighter, my spirits soaring. As I made my way back to my office, I noticed the curious glances, the whispers, the surprised gasps. Lena, my assistant Sarah, exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Is that? You? It's me, I said, grinning. And I've got a story to tell you. I couldn't wait to share my adventure, to unveil the incredible secrets I'd discovered, to unleash the power of futuristic beauty on a world that was desperately in need of a little magic. And as I looked at my reflection in the elevator mirror, my skin glowing, my eyes sparkling, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a new adventure, a new era of beauty and empowerment. And I, Lena, the girl who was once forgotten, abandoned, and left to die, was going to lead the way. Okay, so walking back into my office after weeks of being on leave, aka gallivanting in a futuristic world, was like stepping into an alternate reality. Everyone froze, jaws dropped, coffee cups clattered to the floor. It was like I'd risen from the dead, except, with better hair and a killer glow. Lena? Sarah stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief. But how? Long story, I said, grinning. But the short version is, I'm cured. The news spread like wildfire. First through the office, then through the company, then through the entire industry. The girl who was supposed to be wasting away in some hospice bed was back, looking healthier, more vibrant, and dare I say, younger than ever. The rumor mill went into overdrive, with whispers of experimental treatments, miracle cures, and even alien intervention. My phone blew up. Calls from family, from Mark, from those friends who'd vanished faster than free champagne at a fashion show. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of me, a glimpse of the miracle, a share of the secret. Lena, darling, my mother gushed, her voice dripping with faux concern. We were so worried, but you look marvelous. What have you been doing? Oh, I said casually. Just hanging out in a futuristic world, getting cured by a genius scientist, the usual. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear her brain trying to process the information. Mark was even more ridiculous. He showed up at my office, a bouquet of wilted roses in hand, his face a mask of guilt and desperation. Lena, babe, he croaked, I'm so sorry, I was a fool. Please give me another chance. Another chance? I scoffed. To what? Cheat on me while I'm on my deathbed? No thanks. I've moved on to bigger and better things. And then there were the friends, those social butterflies who'd suddenly remembered my existence. They flocked to me, their apologies as fake as their designer handbags. Lena, darling, one gushed, we were so heartbroken when but you're back, and you look amazing. We should totally celebrate. Yeah, celebrate the fact that they'd abandoned me when I needed them most? Hard pass. But the real transformation wasn't just about my health or my newfound immunity to toxic people. It was about the serum, that little vial of liquid magic that held the key to eternal youth, or at least a really good approximation of it. I spent weeks working with my team of scientists, reverse engineering the formula, adapting it for mass production. It was challenging, exhilarating, and a little bit terrifying. This wasn't just another lipstick shade. This was a game changer, a revolution in the beauty industry. And when we finally launched Eternal Glow, the world went crazy. It was a global phenomenon, a frenzy of demand that crashed our website and sent our stock prices soaring. Everyone wanted it, the celebrities, the socialites, the everyday people who just wanted to feel good about themselves. Suddenly, I wasn't just the CEO of a successful cosmetics company. I was a pioneer, an innovator, a woman who had defied death and brought back the secret to eternal youth. The media couldn't get enough of me. The interviews were endless, and my face was plastered on magazines and billboards across the globe. But it wasn't about the fame or the fortune. It was about the impact. Seeing the joy on people's faces, the confidence it gave them, the way it empowered them to embrace their own unique beauty, that was the real reward. And as I looked out at the world, transformed by the power of Eternal Glow, I knew that I had kept my promise to Dr. Aris. I had used my knowledge for good, to make a difference, to show the world that beauty wasn't just about appearances, it was about confidence, resilience, and the unwavering belief in your own inner sparkle. Okay, so Eternal Glow wasn't just a product, it was a revolution. It wasn't about erasing wrinkles or chasing some impossible ideal of youth. It was about empowerment, about giving people the confidence to embrace their own unique beauty, to feel good in their own skin, no matter their age. My company's value skyrocketed. We were no longer just a lipstick empire. We were a global force, a leader in the beauty and wellness industry. And me? Well, let's just say I wasn't just a CEO anymore. I was a visionary, a philanthropist, a woman who used her influence to make a real difference in the world. I launched foundations, funded research, and partnered with organizations that empowered women, supported those facing illness, and promoted access to healthcare for all. I used my platform to speak out against unrealistic beauty standards, to champion diversity and inclusivity, and to encourage people to love themselves, flaws and all. Beauty isn't about perfection, I'd say in interviews, my voice firm and passionate. It's about authenticity, about embracing your individuality, about celebrating what makes you, you. And the world listened. I became a role model, an inspiration, a woman who had defied the odds and used her success to uplift others. The forgotten girl, the abandoned daughter, the dying CEO, that was all in the past. This was the new Lena, the empowered Lena, the Lena who was finally living her life on her own terms. Of course, my family and ex-fiancé weren't about to let me forget their existence. They ramped up their attempts to reconcile, their apologies now laced with a healthy dose of desperation and self-interest. Lena, darling, my mother would sob, we were so wrong. We're so proud of you, of everything you've accomplished. Please forgive us. Forgive you? I'd echo, my voice laced with amusement. For what? For trying to cash in on my inheritance before I was even cold? We were just worried about your future. My father would chime in, his voice a pathetic whimper. We wanted to make sure your legacy was protected. Yeah, right. Their legacy of greed and neglect. Mark was even more persistent. He bombarded me with calls, texts, flowers, even a ridiculously expensive diamond bracelet, which I promptly returned. Lena, I love you. He'd plead, his voice thick with fake emotion. I made a mistake. Melissa meant nothing to me. It was you all along. Really? I'd ask, raising an eyebrow. And what about now? Now that I'm not dying? Now that I'm more successful than ever? Now that I have the power to make or break your career? He'd stammer, his face reddening, his true colors shining through the facade of remorse. And in that moment, I knew that I'd made the right decision. I didn't need them. Not my family, not Mark, not the friends who'd abandoned me when I needed them most. I had built my own empire, my own support system, my own happiness. I had found love not in the arms of a cheating fiancé, but in the unexpected friendship of a brilliant scientist from another world. I had discovered my purpose, not in the pursuit of wealth and status, but in the desire to make a difference, to empower others, to leave the world a little better than I found it. And as I stood on the rooftop of my company headquarters, overlooking the bustling city, the sun setting on another day of triumphs and possibilities, I felt a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for the journey, for the struggles, for the betrayals that had ultimately led me to this moment of empowerment and self-discovery. I raised my glass, a toast to the future, to the woman I had become, to the life I had created, to independence, I whispered, my voice filled with conviction, to success, to happiness, to the power of believing in yourself, even when no one else does. And as I took a sip of my champagne, the city lights twinkling below, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new era, a new adventure, a new world where anything was possible. And I, Lena, the girl who was once forgotten, abandoned, and left to die, was ready to embrace it all with open arms and a fearless heart.